your volume up even more. It might seem strange, but I cannot hear. Is that also everyone else's experience? Is it hard to hear the sopranos? I'm seeing some nods.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
Okay, great.
I'll turn myself up a little.
Okay, that's great. Thank you. And I see too that's a couple more sopranos might also be coming. Oh, Lisa will be coming also after soundtrack, so there will be more balance too in that sense. Let's try one more time.
Lynn?
Nice, good D flat major.
Lynn Clymer?
Basses again. Tenors. Altos. Sopranos.
Yeah, I know.
Ready?
Roy, go ahead and go. I don't know. Lynn doesn't hear me. Roy?
Beautiful. That's great. I can hear all of our parts now. That's great. Excellent. Nice job. Okay, so Janelle, maybe because we turned you up so loud and we know that Lisa is also coming, maybe turn down just a tad. Sorry to make you fidget with your volume so much, but just knowing that there's going to be another soprano joining too with volume. But otherwise, excellent. Thank you. Ming.
Roy, where's Roy? Roy, you can go. Roy,
anything before
go
we
ahead
get
and
started?
go.
It sounds
Roy?
good to me.
Okay, great.
Yes.
And I think Ming
Roy
might be
Nierenberg?
disconnected right now. Okay. Great, excellent, beautiful. Relax for a couple
Roy
minutes and we'll
Nierenberg?
get started at 6:45 as we regularly do. Thank you.
I can't get him.
Joel's here.
Yeah, Joel, I can hear him on Jack Tripp. Is he already gone?
Are there other Jack
Joel,
Tripp
you
people
should
in
go
rehearsals?
to,
Yes.
Hello, welcome.
Hi, it's just awfully quiet.
Joel?
We just finished our
Joel,
sound
go ahead
like
and
our
go to
balance
Jack
check,
Tripp.
So we just by seconds you missed all the noise.
Ah. Well, I got on at 6 and then went to eat.
Joel,
so
is he in Jack
I'm
Tripp
gone
already? He
now.
seems to feel like, it looks like he's done.
Well, he can't hear us, that's for sure.
I did a balance check across the section. Sorry, I missed that.
Yeah.
Were there plenty of basses?
There were.
Not a
Where's
problem.
Joel?
Can you sing soprano, Rick?
There was
For
a
alto
time.
1,
There was a buzz that people were hearing earlier. Is that buzz still here, or is that gone now?
I still
Seems
hear
to be
it at a
gone.
low level.
Is Joel there?
Which I don't.
He's there.
I hear like a hiss.
Lisa just closed out the sound check
Yeah.
room.
That too.
Oh, she did. Okay. All right. So we should just go ourselves now.
Mine's
Yeah.
gone quiet. This is Jared.
Okay. Thanks, Kay.
I don't hear any buzzes.
I don't know. I don't know what happened to Lynn or Roy or Annie at the end. But I don't think I can help them.
No, I think we're done.
is Lisa Lunenburg on yet?
I am.
I highlighted the unison and non-unison yesterday. Today, after yesterday.
Atta girl.
Oh my god. And marked the where we're crossing.
Up and down and all the accidentals have arrows everywhere.
I'm sorry. Okay, everybody. It is 6:45 and it is Monday, close to the end of June. So we'll welcome you to our summer sessions on Brahms. We, of course, are looking at various works, but these opening few minutes are going to be spent sightseeing, looking at some theory, and looking at some history of these pieces too. So I'm going to start it off with, again, sort of a discussion how we know something sort of sounds like Brahms. What are the characteristics, the musical characteristics that give us clues that something might be of Brahms? And we've talked about, of course, in the first week, the idea of how he has rhythms that break into twos and threes, and how some of them happen at the same time, how the idea of the triplet can sometimes sound like fate. Last week we talked about his really inventive harmonies, and this is at a period we call the Romantic era. Again, not romantic in a love sense, but romantic in sort of a sense of individuality and expression. And Brahms was at the point where harmony was really splintering. We're taking harmony to its ends. And certain points, the harmony of Bach doesn't make sense anymore. but Brahms was on the conservative side of that, a classicist within the era of all these romantic composers. So he was a classical romantic classical romantic composer, whereas people like Beethoven was in the classical era and sort of bridged the gap into romantic era. So Beethoven actually was on both sides. He started off with music like Haydn and Mozart, but suddenly, his individual spirit and what he wanted to say with music really heralded the start of the Romantic era. So, what we want to do is we're going to be looking a little bit not only at rehearsal with the music, but also Julie's going to be talking about some of the history of the Liebeslieder waltzes. And so we're going to be looking at this a little bit. But one of the things that Brahms was really known for, and was actually a lot of composers around this time period were known for, were sort of folk songs and songs that represented their particular background, like music of the streets and the common music you might hear in pubs or in at dances on the street, and bringing that in and crossing it with the music of the concert halls. And so, we talk about Dvorak, from the New World Symphony, and Humperdinck, who wrote Hansel and Gretel, and he created all these amazing folk song-like character. But you have the French folk songs from the French composers. You have the German folk songs like Brahms using sort of music that was surrounding him of his day. Now, remember that Brahms, to make ends meet when he was, or to earn a little bit of money when he was young, actually used to play in pubs and brothels. And there's a lot of speculation about how that affected him. But he used to just plop down at a piano, and his job was just to play music throughout the evening, and he'd just get paid for this. But there's this very famous episode where when he had already become a very successful composer, and after one of his performances, just like many musicians do, some of the performers went out to a pub. And he, with some of his donors and his musicians, would go out, and they just completed this very successful concert. And then these two prostitutes came up to him and said, they were drunk, and they said, "Herr Brahms, this is that famous musician. Why don't you go play us a tune?" Right? And of course, Brahms' companions were incredibly offended, that two drunk people would come up and just make demands of this great illustrious composer to just sit down, play some music. And they were about to say something, and Brahms said, "Of course, I'm happy to," and went down to the piano at the bar and just started playing a whole bunch of folk songs and improvising at the piano. And after a little while, Brahms went back to his seat, and his companion said, I can't believe you, that was so demeaning. Why would you do that?" And he said, some of my formative times were in brothels playing for the various people that went throughout, the prostitutes that were there, the people that were drunk, the bartender and whatnot. And he has and he said, "I have a lot of fond memories from that time, and it was how I developed some of my musical skills, just experimenting and playing at the piano." And so the Liebeslieder waltzes actually showcase a lot of this. And Julie and I are showing the same thing, but we were talking about this earlier because we realized we were going to show the same clip. But one of the things that you find oftentimes in the Liebeslieder waltzes is the Lentler. And the Lentler is sort of an older version of a waltz. It's still in 3, but has a feeling of 1. And there is a sense of, sometimes there's a bit of stomping or stepping or sliding your feet. And there's this very famous scene, I don't know if this is the same one, but Christian, do you have it? There's a very famous scene that everybody knows, I think.
Before, pardon me for interrupting, but before Christian starts playing any videos, it turns out that this will apply to you, Julia, as well. It turns out that we can play the videos and the music, but you can't talk while the videos are playing. So if Christian starts the videos, then for the 1 or 2 minutes that it plays, we'll all be able to hear the video, and then when it's done, we'll switch back to you being able to talk. Would you like us to proceed in that fashion?
Yeah, that sounds good. Can I do this when it's time to stop?
Yes, I will
Sure.
I will be watching. Okay, so Christian, I'm about to kill my pipe, and you can start yours, and we'll switch back as soon as the video's over. Christian, can you hear us? Are you starting your video? There we go. Okay, now he can hear you.
Can we do the Lentler video? Aha, yes. This is the Lentler everybody knows.
We were afraid you'd make us all dance together. The Von Trapp family dances.
What's that they're playing? It's the Lentler. It's an Austrian folk dance.
Show me.
Oh, Kurt, I haven't danced that since I was a little girl.
Oh, you remember. Please.
Well,
Please.
all right, come on over here. Now you bow and I curtsy.
Like this?
Fine, now we go for a little walk. This way. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, step together. Now, step, hop, now turn under. Not right. This way. Hop, step, hop, and under. Kurt, we'll have to practice.
Do allow me, will you?
Mm-hmm. I don't remember anymore.
Your face is all red.
Is it? I don't suppose I'm used to dancing.
Oh, that was beautifully done. What a lovely couple you make.
I think Jack tripped.
I just turned you back on.
Oh, great. Okay, I hear an echo, but so that is of course a very famous Lentler, but Lentlers again the precursors to waltzes, but you'll find that a lot in the Liebeslieder waltzes, and so the very first of the Liebeslieders is a Lentler. And you're going to hear this very clear lilt in it. And there are no tempo markings or changes in this. But I want you to note how flexible this is, not only by dynamic, but also through rubato too. So if we don't mind playing a little bit of this, and remember, jack trip people, you have to turn your computer back on. Oh, I see it. Catherine, I just mentioned this when we switch. So we can start and hear a little bit of the first of the Liebeslieder's waltzes. Turning off your sound. If you're jack trip, turn off your sound, off your computer, and then coming back. So I want you to look at the number 8 of the Liebeslieder waltzes that we're looking at. And this is such a beautiful version of a Lentler. And it has both of those. The last excerpt that you heard is actually called a Furriant, which is this bohemian fast dance in 3 that changes between 3s and 2s all the time. And this has a little bit of both of it in it. So if you listen to it. But do you hear how much rubato we can do? I can rush the 8th notes. Wait. Wait. 1, 2, 1. Wait. And you hear that there's so much push and pull. And so that's what's part of the fun about the Lentler dance, is that a waltz sort of has these very long phrases, like 4 bars, 8 bar phrases, but you don't want to have too much rubato at the end of them because it sort of like interrupts the flow. But the Lentler really has a lot of rubato written into it. So you really have that wait and you and I can slow down and start again. And that sort of playfulness is really key for not only all of the Liebeslieder waltzes, but specifically the Lentler as a dance form. And that's what really distinguishes it between any other piece that is very similar, like something that's in 3, that has 3 beats to bar. Waltzes, minuets, Lentlers all have almost the same structure, but stylistically are so completely different. Minuets are definitively in 3, da da 1 and 2, 3, 1, 2. 1, 2, 3, 1, or 1, 2, 3, 1, right? All the typical minuets. Waltzes feel like they're in 1, but they're 3 beats to the bar. That's all in 3. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, but you beat only 1 to the bar, not 3 to the bar, like a minuet. But a Lentler is sort of almost in between, where you could do, it's sort of a fast 3, so it could feel like it's in 1. But unlike a waltz, which just trips along, the Lentler has all these very sweet pauses in it. And just like in Sound of Music, you can see that's where you connect to people, that's where the phrasing of the movements can change. But it becomes really very, can be very stylized depending on how you decide to perform it. And so a lot of these are just absolutely gorgeous, and it's fun to see what type of dances Brahms and styles that Brahms includes for these works, and what are the underlying forms, dance forms that people would know. And that's what I think lended itself to its popularity too, because everybody knew this music. But just like last week when we were looking at the harmony for the Waldesnacht, you saw that Brahms took something very familiar like a chorale, and then he added his twist to it. He took the harmonies and took them off to a completely different world. So something familiar and new at the same time. And the Liebeslied waltzes, especially when we look at them today in rehearsal, like the second part of this, the harmonies are crazy. You know, you look at the second page of number 8. Like that in some people's ears during that time would be a complete clash. You know, that's again a bizarre chord. And so you get these harmonies that are bizarre, and you have that combination of old forms but a new take on it. And I think that's sort of why Brahms, you can hear that in his music. You know, it's a new take, but always rooted in the past, which is exactly the opposite of Wagner. In the Wagnerian school, we talked about the Brahmsian school versus the Wagnerian school. Wagnerian school was reinvent everything, create new. And Brahms was the classical romantic composer. Everything is rooted in forms of the past, of harmonies in the past, but then you see the connection between the new. So I went a little over, but I'd like to, who do I pass it to? Am I going to pass it to Paul? I hear him clearing his throat.
Yes.
So Paul, you're up.
Great. Thank you very much, Ming. Good evening, everybody. We're going to get back to some, let's see, they want to see if I want to join audio. I better not do that, or we're going to have major feedback. So let me I'm going to share my screen here. We're going to start with a couple of rhythmic exercises. I hope that you'll find these entertaining and useful. Now, this first one, it's a rather simple one. This is only spoken, but I wanted to start with this easy one because I wanted to talk about a little trick that many people use for sight reading, and that is memorizing in advance. So what I mean by that is if you look at the first or the second bar of this, where you have the toom, the long whole note that just goes toom. While you're singing, when you start looking at a piece, I want you to memorize a small part of the piece, enough that you can keep it in your head. In this case, I think 2 beats worth would be fine. But in this case, what you would do is while you memorize the toom bar and know that you're going to hold that toom for 4 beats, while you're speaking that toom, your eyes are going to be moving forward to the next bar. So you'll see the tick, tick. So really what you're doing is you're kind of, you're having yourself in two different places at once. You're kind of looking ahead to the future while you're singing in the past. It really does pull your brain in 2 directions, but I've found it to be the most useful for reading ahead and knowing what's coming. So I thought we could do a simple piece like this to start to give you an idea how that works. What I do when I'm at home is you can either have somebody cover up a bar for you, then it forces you to memorize, or you can just kind of do it yourself. But in this case, I'm going to give you a steady beat like so, and then we're going to just say tune. But as much as possible, try and be reading ahead and see how that works for you. You know what? I think it might be better to do a metronome. Tell me if you can hear this. Can you all hear that?
Sure.
That's a little fast. We'll go at about 60. Okay. So I'm gonna give us a count, then there'll be 4 beats for free, and then we'll start on the tune. Now part of the fun of this is also we don't just count pitches or rhythms. We also have to count rests. So let's see how we do with this. I'm gonna give you 1 bar for free, and then we'll start on tune. Here we go. Let me get the bar. 1, 2, starting with tune. 2, what? Do I have anyone with me?
We're not seeing any.
We
of the
don't
music.
see any score. What are you playing?
Oh my gosh. I got to share my screen. Hold on.
Yep. We didn't know what was going on.
It's a great description.
Hard to memorize. Be mind readers, not only singing readers.
Mind the rest.
Well, how's that? Boy, that must have been a weird little segment there. Huh? So I'm going to give you 4 for free, and then we're in on the tune. While you're singing the tune, look ahead to the ticks, and the tick-tock, and the ticker tape. Okay, here we go. And 1, 2, speaking, and tune, tick, tick, tick-tock, tick-tock, ticker tape, rest, 2, 3, and teenager, teeny bopper, rest, 2, looking ahead, and so super duper,
Superman.
taxi cab, taxi driver, 2, 3, and 1, teenager, teeny bopper, 2. Okay, it wasn't bad. I was a little late turning the page there for you because I was still on Zoom. The logistics here are crazy. Let's pull that up again. Okay, I think we could use another shot at that, but we're going to speed it up. So just once more through. Isn't it interesting how these little phrases do point out the rhythmic values pretty well, like teenager, that sounds like a triplet. And teeny bopper is very clearly 16th note. Fun little thing. Here we go from the top. 1, 2, starting on tune. Tick, tick, tick tock, ticker tape. 1, 2, 3, and teenager, teeny bopper. We're slowing down. 3, 4. So super duper Superman. 2, 3, taxi cab, taxi driver. 3, 4, 1, teenager, teeny bopper. 2. You know, I think we could be cleaner on that last line.
Yeah.
Let's try that last line again. 3, 4, and 1. Teenager, teeny bopper. 2. Okay, terrific. Let's move on. Thank you for those of you that held that tie for the entire time. I appreciate that. Our next little rhythmic item. Sorry, it's blocked off by the Zoom screen. I gotta minimize Zoom real quick. Let's turn this off. Okay, Our next piece is called One Note Samba. And I think you can kind of see why it's called that. This is purely for rhythmic sake. This is a very syncopated rhythm. Let's try this together. Now, notice at the very beginning here, can you see my cursor on there?
Yes.
At the very beginning here, we start on the and of 3. This is a partial measure here. So we go 1, 2, do, 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 do. So I just want to try this first line, speaking only. We're going to go nice and slow. We go 1, 2, 3, do, do, do. Okay? Everybody just on do. We're going to only do the first line. 1, 2, 1, 2, 3. Do, 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 do. And from there, the rhythm is very much the same. And the pitch, as you can see, is very simple. Let's try that much a little faster. 1, 2, 1, 2, 3. Do, 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 do. Okay, very good. And now we're going to read the first 4 lines. And we have only one pitch change, and that is at the end of the second line. Here is the key. We're in D minor, or not D minor. It's a B flat major. Well, it's technically it's B flat major or G minor, but for all intents and purposes, this is D minor. That's what it sounds like it's in. So there is one pitch change. We go from to this. Anyone know what that interval is? Perfect fourth, the marriage interval. So we're going to start at the beginning, and there's your starting pitch. So we're going to do, 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 do. And let's have some fun with this, shall we? I'm going to just give you 1, 2, 3, and we're in. Okay. 1, 2, 3. Do, 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 do. Very nice, very nice. In the intro, how'd you all do? I hear some ahs. Okay, well, better luck next time. I don't want to continue too much on this because we have more to do, and I'd like to touch on that. Now, last week, I introduced about interval recognition. Can you all see this chart I have up here now of all the intervals? I really should check. Now you see on the left side we have seconds, fourths, and sixths. I mentioned this a little bit last week, and I really kind of rushed through it because of time, so I'd like to take a couple seconds on this. If you look at the seconds, fourths, and sixths, they have different types of note heads on them. They either have a line or a space, or it's a line and a space. They're always going to be different on a second, a fourth, and a sixth. It'll be some combination of line and space, but never both the same. If you look on the right side, third, fifths, and sevenths, those are always going to be line, line, or space, space. Does this make sense?
Yeah.
Okay, so now, so we've covered that part of it. Now the other part of it is how far apart they are. And when you look at that, it suddenly becomes very obvious what these intervals are. Seconds obviously are crushed together. Fourths have a very distinctive look about them, and sixths are very far apart. So this is just, and the same for octaves, which you can kind of see down below the sixths. These are what we call harmonic intervals because they're stacked. What you're usually going to counter in singing is what we call a melodic interval, where you'll see the notes separately. So this isn't generally what you're going to read in vocal music, but I believe this the same concept applies. So this is just a visual way of identifying intervals. And I think when you look at it this way, it can become pretty obvious what they are. And it is something you can practice and get better at over time. We are not talking here about the difference between major and minor intervals. And I do want to touch on that very briefly. A major interval is the interval that's created by a major scale. So a major second is just the first and second scale degrees. A major third is the first and third. Perfect fourth. So all of these fit in the major scale. The same is not true of minor intervals. Minor intervals aren't really related to the minor scale. A minor interval is simply the major interval minus a half step. So if we have a second, that's a major second, and a minor second is a half step less than that. Okay. Now, I'd like to do a little exercise with you. This is, well, probably pretty annoying, but we're going to do it anyway. I'm going through all the intervals, and what I'd like you to do with me is sing like so. Minor second, major second, minor third, major third, perfect fourth, and then we go tritone and perfect fifth. So, and then we're going to go all the way through the scale. Minor sixth, major seventh, major seventh, and we'll go up to octave. I hope everyone understands where I'm getting at there. Let's try this together. 1, 2, here we go. Minor second, major second, minor third, major third, perfect fourth, tritone, perfect fifth, minor sixth, major sixth, minor seventh, major seventh, octave. All right, I like what I'm hearing from Jack Trip folks, and I assume that the Zoom folks are having just as much success. Let's come down the scale. Minor second, major second, because these intervals sound a lot different when we come down the scale. So, here we go, folks. 2, 3, and 4. Minor second, major second, minor third, major third, perfect fourth, tritone, perfect fifth, minor sixth, major sixth, minor seventh, major seventh, octave. Okay. How'd that go?
Not so good. Not so easy.
Not so easy. Maybe we'll touch on that next week.
Yeah.
We'll probably do that again. I was going to just pull up some random melodies for you, but in the interest of time, let's go straight to Dein Blaues Auge, which we talked about last week. I'm going to unshare. So now Christian's going to put Dein Blaues Auge, Opus 58, number 9 of... I see a question about major fifth and minor fifth. Those are referred to always as a perfect fifth. We have perfect fifths, diminished fifths, and I don't know about augmented fifth. You don't hear that very often. I guess you could. But we use the term perfect for fourths and fifths. Okay. We've looked at the first page of this, so I don't want to look at that again because, we're sight reading here, right? So, just take a peek at the last pitch on the first page. That is S. There it is. Check out this interval. It's B flat to C flat. Now we started this piece with a major second. Dein blaues Auge. Brahms chose on his second verse to go Dein Brandung. So you see we now have a minor second on our second verse. Now beyond this, I'm just going to point out a couple of things that I would notice. On the second bar, from the final pitch of the first bar to the second bar, we have a perfect fourth. That is the Here Comes the Bride. Notice the flats on the second and third bar of the second page. And then we have a turn on the first bar. So be aware that that's coming. These are the things that you might practice a little bit before actually going through the sight reading. And then if you look at viser so clar, at the end of the second line, that's a perfect fourth up, perfect fifth down. And these final two lines, these are completely outlining E flat major chords, which is our key. Like if you go, you're outlining a major chord there. From kühl to und, that's an octave. Be aware that that octave is coming. So these are the kinds of things I like to think about before we even start. But now that you've done that, I'd like to take the infinity sign. That's a turn. And what that means is we just do this figure, and the flat above it mean that we don't play it like this. That's what we would do without that flat there. But because it's a flat, we make it a C flat. If you can't sing the turn while you're sight reading, just don't do it. That's okay. Now, I want to give you an opportunity. Let's take 30 seconds on page 1, 30 seconds on page 2 to just look at them. So if we could just scroll to, maybe not even that long. Look at this by yourself and do whatever work you might think about on your own. We're going to have a little bit of silence. Here's the key, E flat major. And now let's look at the second page. Boy, I see I have some double flats there. It's going to be crazy. Hang on with me there. Okay, shall we give this a shot? We're just going to go straight through it, and we're going to try and keep going. We're going to try and read ahead, and we're going to accept whatever result happens. That's part of sight reading also.
Should
From
we
the top.
sing on new?
Oh, thank you. Let's sing on new. So I don't have to stop like last week. Here we go. 2, 3. Time rolls There's your pitch. Good. Here's your pitch. And here's your pitch. Fourth, fifth. Thank you very much, everybody. I hope that went okay. If it didn't go perfectly or even well, don't be discouraged at all. This is not easy work that we're doing here. And we'll come back to this piece for one more read next week. I've taken enough time, and I know that we're itching to get to rehearsal. So I'm going to pass it back to Ming or Julia. And thank you very much. See you soon.
Thank you, Paul. Echoing what Paul just said, yeah, definitely. The only way to get better at sight singing and sight reading is just to do it over and over and over and over again. And the theory that you learn is good and helps you develop skills, but the best thing to do is just do it over and over and over again. The other thing I should mention is that we as adults, I mean, kids do have very plastic brains. They learn very quickly, right? And they're always developing. But one of the things that holds adults back, we always say, oh, that didn't sound very good. And kids never say that, you know? They're like, violin sounds like they're stepping on a cat for the first year. Whee! It's great, you know? So we have to take that same sort of attitude going towards them. Now, we did get a little bit of a later start, so I asked Julia, I said, you know, it's perfectly fine to just continue so that she doesn't feel like she's squishing her part, but she's going to talk a little bit more about the Liebeslieder waltzes and about the history of these great pieces. So, Julia, all yours.
All right, thank you, Ming, and hello, everybody. So, in our first week, I have to fix the Zoom thing later. Okay, so in our first week together, we kind of talked about Brahms's early life a little bit. Last week, we kind of skipped over the middle stuff, fast-forwarded to his later life to kind of focus on the Parts. And so now we're kind of backing up and taking a look at some of his middle years. So during the decade of 1860, this was when Brahms was in his late 20s and his early 30s. And Brahms came to his compositional maturity during this time. So he visited Vienna, Austria for the first time in 1862, and very soon after, kind of during this decade, he made this great city his new home. So he moved from his hometown of Hamburg to Vienna. And here he was able to rub elbows with many influential composers and performers, musicians in general. Spent some time as a conductor for the Vienna Sing Academy, which was the first mixed choir in Vienna, and wrote or kind of continued to work on some very important career-defining works, such as Ein Deutsches Requiem, which happened towards 65 to 68, I think is when he was writing this. Rinaldo, which is a cantata, I think, for men's voices. And then he began working on his first string quartet in C minor. He wrote a lot of chamber music. He wrote string sextets, piano quartets, piano quintet. And he continued to work on his Symphony No. 1 in C minor. He did not complete it during this time. He completed it in the early 70s. But he made progress on it. And if you may have remembered, I think Ming has touched on this previously, not necessarily in this session, but when we've talked about Brahms before, but it took Brahms a good 20 years to write his first symphony. Because one of his own perfectionism, we were just talking about kind of perfectionism that adults have, but his own perfectionism is expectations that he placed on himself that often kind of caused him to destroy early drafts and works that he didn't like. And also the expectations that his contemporaries had of him to kind of continue Beethoven's legacy and the legacy that Beethoven left behind and the dignity of his symphonies. And they were expecting Brahms to be the next great German composer to pick up the helm here. And so that, of course, weighed on him. So it took him like 20 years. But during this decade, the 1860 decade, he made some progress on deciding on some form and just, making a little progress on his symphony journey here. So that's kind of what he was working on during this time. Also, while he was in Vienna, Brahms was engaged in kind of an ongoing project to edit a number of Schubert's unpublished works. So among these works were several Lentler dances for piano. So the Lentler, as Ming has talked about a little bit already tonight, it's an Austrian folk dance in 3/4 meter. It's characterized by that pa beat that we know so well from the waltz. And as Ming mentioned too, it kind of preceded the Viennese waltz. So it has a lot of similar characteristics in that sense. But the word Lentler originates from the word ländlich, meaning rural. So as you may then expect, this dance is therefore, it originated kind of from rural areas of Austria rather than the inner city or in court life. So it's a partner dance. It features lots of hopping and stamping and clapping. As you saw in the Sound of Music video, there was clapping and stomping at one point. Lots of arm tying too, so you may have seen at the beginning too, with Maria and Kurt kind of dancing with their arms, kind of trying to figure out a turn there. Turning, gliding, spinning, clapping, lots of fun things. And it's most commonly accompanied by instruments, but could also feature vocal parts or yodeling too, which is exciting. Yeah, so I was, at this point, I was going to share the Sound of Music video, but it's so funny that Ming and I were on the same wavelength here tonight about that. So just a fun fact about that dance, the choreographers who choreographed that Sound of Music dance studied, just kind of went deep in depth into the Lentler dance. So it's not a traditional dance in that sense, but it's a derivative of that dance, of the Lentler traditional dance. So it's a modernized version of it, you could say. So, after having studied and edited Schubert's Lentler piano pieces, they're very light and joyful dances, he was kind of also maybe perhaps inspired by the Viennese waltz and the dance culture in Vienna at the time. Brahms decided to write a few pieces of his own. So he wrote the Waltzes for Piano Duet in 1865, so four-hand piano, so two people at the piano, and then the Liebeslieder Waltz in 1869, which we are starting to learn and love spending time with. So these waltzes, or defined, the German translates to love song waltzes. As we know, they're a set of 18 dances for piano duet, four-hand piano, and voices. He didn't specify if it was kind of one on a part or a chorus. I think it can accommodate an ensemble of any size. So initially, I think he was thinking about chorus, but it ended up, he ended up kind of deciding that it's kind of nice to have one on a part. More information on that in a second. But the words are pulled from Polydora, a song book of world poetry, a collection of folk lyrics and poetry from around Europe, translated and curated by German poet Daumer. So it includes works, I think, also from Russia and Poland and Hungary, but they're all translated into German, and they all speak of various aspects of love. Some happy, some sad, but different aspects of love. And each waltz also acts as kind of a miniature character piece here that musically reflects the emotions of the text. So they're all very short, they're in binary form, most of them, not all of them, with repeats, with that kind of stylistic pa beat that we talked about. They're highly sophisticated, as Ming was talking about, harmonically. So it's not, Brahms did add his kind of own personal touch to the music here. But they beautifully express kind of a gamut of emotions, such as longing and reluctance and denial, sadness, obsession, joy, rapture, lots of things that have to do with love. So these waltzes are actually very unique among Brahms's other works because they were not intended to be performed in their concert hall, as I had mentioned, not necessarily for a large chorus at its kind of, while he was kind of conceiving this piece, but rather he conceived it as house music. Now, the term house music does not mean electronic dance music for clubs, but rather music to be played in the home. It's the German term house music. So music to be played in the home, in parlors, at informal gatherings, in the pub, just kind of generally at jovial social occasions. And it was the popular music of the time, if you will. So they were an instant hint, as you could probably guess. They solidified his reputation with the general music-buying public in Vienna and across much of Europe in general. And enough copies sold of the Liebeslieder Walzer, but also a second collection that he did a little bit later, just a couple of years later, called the Neue Liebeslieder, so the new love songs, which he wrote just a couple of years later, after the successes of this first collection that we're kind of learning. So between those two collections, enough copies of them sold that was kind of responsible for a lot of his personal wealth as a composer. And we think that Brahms originally conceived this collection of dances as an unordered set. So he kind of assumed that everyone would select their favorites to practice and play with their friends, and no one would necessarily be interested in performing them kind of as a full set with a sense of a general story or a musical arc. So in a sense here, BCCO is doing exactly what Brahms intended by selecting only 3 movements to kind of study and spend time with and explore together. But kind of after some extensive back and forth with his publisher, Simrock, Brahms eventually kind of landed on the order that we see today of the 18. If you buy like a collection, or if you download, because it's in public domain now, if you download them, they're in a very specific order, and they don't. They're arranged in a group of 6, where kind of each group displays the kind of last segment of each of these groups kind of displays a slightly more complex waltz than the others. But just mentioning that to say that there's not necessarily any space to read into the story arc of these poems necessarily, because that wasn't Brahms's intention with the work. So that's kind of some background information on the piece, some historical information, but also just what was going on in Brahms's life during that time. So with that, I think we're going to jump straight into rehearsal now.
Great. Thank you, Julia. So we're actually going to start with a warm-up, so I'm going to pass it right back to Julia because we've been trading off. But I just want to say thank you. It's so fun actually listening to and diving into some composers' works. And it's also a little bit bizarre because, as we've talked about, and Julia made reference to as well, Brahms was very, very secretive, shy, and like she said, he hated his drafts. He actually burned all of his drafts so that you would only see the finished product, right? And that's very unlike Mozart and Beethoven. Mozart, if he made mistakes in the score, he would just kind of scratch it out and stuff because it was all composed in his head. But Beethoven was literally working out every single bar, and it's really fun because things like Beethoven's Fifth Symphony, you could see him testing out a dozen different endings, right? But Brahms, you never get to see that progression. You never get to see his thought process or how he got to it. They make allusions to it in his journal and, of course, Clara Schumann's journal. Like we know the Alto Rhapsody, which I think Julia mentioned, or maybe I mentioned, the Schumann's daughter, right? He was pining after. I think when he got married, that was one of the pieces that he wrote, and he couldn't figure out the ending. He was trying to figure out the key, and he couldn't get back to the key that he wanted. So he was very unhappy with the piece. But it was also a piece that when Clara Schumann saw it, she said, such emotion, and I wish he could just talk to me and express such emotions that he finds in his music. And so it's both a very intimate look into the emotions of this great composer when we look at the music. So that being said, I'm going to pass it back to Julia for our warm-up, and then we'll get started looking at Gesang der Parzen and, of course, the Liebeslieder waltzes.
All right, hello again. Let's all sit up nice and tall. If we were relaxing kind of during this last discussion on some historical things, make sure you're sitting up nice and tall. On the edge of your chair, check your distance to your microphone too if you are on jack trip. If you're not, go ahead. Let's all just reach up together. Do a nice, really quick stretch here to get a little bit of movement. Reach up to the sky here. Nice and tall. And let's leave her to one side so you can grab our one wrist and kind of pull up and over here. And a little side stretch in here. And then let's come back through center so you can grab the other wrist and pull it up and over to the other side. Excellent. And then back to center. Let's bring our arms down into the cactus position. The best stretch ever. And as you do, you're relaxing your shoulders, so don't feel like you're trying to hover them, but you're relaxing your shoulders. Your shoulder blades are pulling back down and together. And relax your neck too. No tension as you're stretching here. And then bring your arms down. Roll your shoulders back. And then forward. And then just very quickly, last stretch here. Just give your neck about 20 seconds of just a little bit of movement here. So as you need, either side to side if you want to just kind of sit in one spot, if you want to bring your head forward and relax the back of your neck. Do as you need here for your neck. Your neck is very important for singing, as you might expect, and we tend to hold a lot of tension in our necks, so it's nice to stretch that out. Just become aware of that tension so you can start to very consciously relax some of those muscles as well. All right, 5 more seconds. So kind of go ahead and roll back up if you're stretching. 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. And let's take a nice deep breath in and give a sigh. Here we go. Excellent. Let's do that one more time, and I want you to get even more yawn space. So just find that space. Like, yeah, dude, find that space in the back. Here we go. And yes, excellent. It's a very loud piano here. Let's now sing with an NG. So let's do the opposite. Bring your soft palate closed with your tongue and sing. Excellent. Keep it forward through your nose. Nicely done. One more. Excellent. Jumping down here, and we'll start with the NG again on 2 notes, and then open up to an ah. So we'll go. But a little bit faster than that. Thank you, Ming, for your comment about secondary dominance. You can hear them in my chord progression. All right, if you're curious about secondary dominance. Okay, so two notes on the NG, and then open up to the ah. Ready? And. Excellent. Okay, so let's, as you open up to the ah, keep that nice forward, beautiful resonance that you have in your nose. So don't fall back into your throat like we were doing with our lifted soft palate. You always want a little bit of that lift, but we're focusing on getting a nice forward resonance here. So rather than do you hear the difference? Yes. Okay, do the first one. Starting here again. Ready and breathe. Excellent, there you go. And. Excellent, nice forward sound. Beautiful. Excellent, we're going to keep going a little bit, but really make sure you have a nice rounded ah. Nice relaxed embouchure. Your lips here nice and relaxed. Same spot, and we'll keep going. Ready and breathe. There you go. Excellent. One more. Nicely done. And a little bit more soft palate work. We'll go sing, sing, and again using that to help find you a nice fuzz and placement in your nose mask area. When you open up to the ah, keep it rounded, but keep your sound forward and the shooting out. Here we go, sing ah. Ready and breathe. Keep going. That jump, make sure that you're trying to get as precise as possible. So rather than sing, oh, instead of singing on the NG, use the NG to place your sound. Sing, but then when you open up to the ah, sing, oh, you're jumping up to the ah rather than kind of gliding up to it, if that makes sense. Let's try it. Keep going a little bit more. Ready? And breathe. There you go, nicely done. And excellent, one more. And excellent, nicely done. Okay, jumping back down here, we'll sing ooh ah. We'll sing actually, I changed my mind. We're gonna sing ooh-wee, because the ooh helps to round the embouchure and keep the e, when you open up to it, nice and round as well. So we don't want ooh-wee. We don't want it too round where we're obscuring the vowel, but we also don't want ooh-wee, too much of that smile. So ooh-wee, you want to round on the e vowel once you open up to it. So again, your turn. Excellent. Beautiful. Nicely done. I'm hearing a couple of voices going, ooh, ooh, ooh. We're just doing the ooh on the very first note. Ooh, and the rest of the notes are the E on the way down. Let's do that. Ready, and go. There we go. And we're going to go up higher, but we're going to start on the low note this time and go. And go up and down. It's a little easier as we get up higher. Ready, and go. Excellent. One more. Excellent. Nicely done. And we'll do one more exercise here. We'll start down here and we'll sing a nice scale. We'll go, yeah. Well, I guess arpeggio first and then scale. Nice, and a nice tall rounded ah. So make sure that the embouchure is a little rounded and you have relaxed open jaw, which I can do now after my wisdom tooth surgery here. Ready, and go. Excellent. I think you might expect what I'm about to say, but the downward scale. Remember, anytime that we're going downward, we always want to think that we're going up mentally, not necessarily for, intonation-wise, but we always want to be thinking up, like you're still engaging the phrase here, so you're not losing the energy of the phrase or of those last few notes. So we're here, I think. So think up as you're singing down. Otherwise, it kind of gets, and we just kind of lose interest in the phrase. So keep interest in the phrase. Let's go. Ready, and breathe. Keep interest. There you go. Here we go. And excellent. Keep the ah tall on the way down. Keep your ah tall. There you go. Excellent. And now take a nice deep breath and let's do a nice good siren together. Again, not trying to get as high as you can possibly go, but just to kind of relax the larynx a little bit and just kind of, feel all the spaces in between all the notes that we just sang. Here we go. Nice deep breath, lifted soft palate. And that concludes our warm-ups. Before I go on with the Gesonder parts, and Ming, do you have anything to say or add?
No, I think maybe, why don't we trade, actually?
Okay.
But I want to tell us a little story. So when Julia was first engaged by BCCO, we said, how comfortable are you playing the piano? And she's like, oh, I don't play the piano at all. I was like, well, I mean, do you want to, like, how would you, I mean, like, it's really good skills because most conductors need to learn piano and having a sense of harmony, because most all other instruments, you playing one line at a time. The voice is one line at a time, violin one line at a time, etc. And with piano, you can play multiple lines, so you can play harmony. So it's really good to have a sense of harmony. So I said one of the first things to do, which is really good, is to learn how to play warm-ups. So learn how to accompany warm-ups. And so this allusion to secondary dominance that I wrote into the chat is simply because there's a progression where you can cheat and just be easy. But the better way to do that is to prepare the next harmony. And so you do what's called a secondary dominant, a chord that prepares you for the new key. And so, so you go. And so I heard Julia playing it. I was like, wait, she's been practicing secondary dominance. So, in any case.
Thank you for noticing.
That was just, I heard it. Okay, so we're going to be looking at the Liebeslieder waltzes, the 3 works that we're doing, and then Gesang parts after this. So I want to start with number 8 first, and then we'll go to 5 and then 11, but 8. And if you were here for the beginning of the rehearsal, one of the things that both Julia and I said differentiates a Lentler from a waltz is that there's a lot more rubato, there's a lot of character to it. And so in the piano, if we were just doing the piano, none of that rubato is written in. And so the dynamics, yeah, there's some dynamics written in, not as much as I played. And there's definitely no ritardandos or accelerandos written in. So the same thing goes for the vocal parts. It's not only that we have to phrase and do dynamics that are not written in there, but that we also take time. Rubato means to steal, right? And so you steal time from one place to put it in another place. So the way that means is that for this first bar, we actually push ahead in the tempo a little bit, and then we pull back at the end of bar. So. And underneath that, you have to have the feeling of. So let's try this together. I want us to be a little bit more playful, a little bit more free. Basses, tenors, altos, sopranos. Now, again, not dry like do, 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 but do, 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 do. I want you to add your own dynamics. We haven't identified how we're going to do it all together yet, but I want you to approach it with a little bit more playfulness and a little bit more lightness. Here we go. 1, 2, I'll give you 1, 2, 3, breathe. Here we go. 1, 2, 3, breathe. Yeah, beautiful. So at the end of the phrases, you're doing these beautiful decrescendos. Can we do a little bit of a crescendo at the beginning? Do, 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 do. And maybe another crescendo into the last bar of each phrase. So the next phrase after that, do, 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 do. Okay, let's try that. Basses, tenors, altos, sopranos. 1, 2, 3, breathe. Excellent. Do, 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 Sorry, I played a wrong note there, but that's great. Let me hear the tenors and basses. Okay, right? 1, 2, 3. Here, crescendo. Yeah, I can already hear the phrasing, as if you had the accompaniment underneath you. Sopranos and altos. Here we go. 1, 2, 3. Yeah. Paul, do you want to join us?
I've been waiting for this.
You want to play
moment.
1 or 2?
I could take 1.
Okay,
Sure.
We're going to do it together. I'll take 2. Everybody play their own line or sing their own line. Here are the opening notes. Okay, 1 bar before you begin, and then everybody, Paul and soprano, altos, tenors, basses, join in together. Here we go. We'll do the repeat, and then why don't we actually go on after that and do a stumble through, which will be good for voice leading. Here we go. I'll count off myself, then I'll play 1 bar, then you enter. 1, 2, 3. Here we go, and repeat. Go on. Repeat. Here we go. 1. Now, that is markedly bizarre and different than the first half, right? The first half, you're like, oh, this is so sweet. And then all of a sudden, the second page, you're like, oh, what is going on, right? Now, we said that these bars are in 3, like boom, chick, chop, bum, chick, chop, bum, bum. But listen to the left hand, the second piano, sorry, I should say the bottom hands of the accompaniment here. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 3. He's really playing around with those 3s and 2s, right? And on top of that, this is a flat key. You have 4 flats, A flat major. And then look at the second bar of the second page. C sharp, G sharp, A natural. Isn't the key A flat? How do we have A natural? F sharp? So the harmonies here are exactly what we talked about if you were here for the historical portion, where Brahms takes old forms, he makes them new. So let's get a little idea of these harmonies. So you have, if we were reading only the choral parts from bar 20, from the second page, Paul, can you play for us a little slowly, like wait, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, like maybe that slow, what the chorus sings for the second page. Here we go. 1, 2, 3, 1. Oh, so the A natural.
That's
A
A
natural.
I'm sorry, the pitch it's so small, but
it's
I'll
okay.
try again. Well, here's it, nimmer, and 1.
And I love that from Nimmerwirt, right at the bottom system. It sounds like, no, that was all in your head, how difficult it was. This part just sounds normal. Right? But the first half of the second part, the top of page 21, what is this? What? See, I mean, it's so bizarre and difficult that both Paul and I are like, what are our fingers doing? So, let's read this together. That's slow, starting from the top of the page, page 21. Basses, tenors, altos, and then sopranos. It's the C sharp right there, okay. And about this fast. 1, 2, 3, breathe, do, do, do. Okay, here we go. Paul, do you want to play?
Sure.
Sure, here we go. 1, 2, 3, 1. Do, 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 do. Yeah, not bad. And you can see why these are so popular, because you just kind of look at that and say, wow, that was bizarre. Let me work this out a little bit, and we can go through it. Why don't we try it a little faster now? 1, 2, 3, do, 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 do. Okay? Here we go. 1, 2, 3, 1. Do, 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 do. Not bad. Now, I want to try this playing the accompaniment that's meant to try to mess you up and see what that feels like when you're singing one thing and the accompaniment is singing the other. Here we go. Okay, here we go. 1, 2, 3, 1. Excellent. Let's do this a little faster. It's like we're winding up the scroll and we're getting faster and faster. Here we go again. Oh, let's go 1, 2, 3, 1. Okay, here we go. 1, 2, 3, 1. Repeat again. 1. Excellent. Now, my favorite part about this is that there's a lot of short phrases. Yeah, like. Right? But when you get to the bottom of the last part of the page, you know. That's one huge long phrase. Like an 8-bar phrase feels very, very long. So can you make that seem like we start from piano, we crescendo all the way to the top, and then we have that fun little hemiola rhythm that messes everybody up. Right at the end. So nimmerviert right here. At the bottom of the page, 2nd bar. Here we go. And Paul, if you mind joining us,
sure.
And I will play the 2nd piano, Paul will play top piano, and everybody going for a very, very long phrase with that wink of that harmonic progression at the end. Rhythmic oddity. Basses, basses, tenors, altos, sopranos. Here we go. 1, 2, 3, 1. That was excellent. Now, can we make it even smoother? Sometimes we have this bounce to it, jump up, up, up. But this one is do 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 do. So it's like we're pushing towards the top of the mountain. Here we go. One more time. 1, 2, 3, 1. Nice. Excellent. Why don't we read through the whole thing? Feel free to try to sing it on the German if you want. Feel free to sing it on English, but we're going to try to get the character. I think the character is going to be the most important part. So starting from the beginning, repeat both times. So we have a 2nd chance at each time. Again, I play 1 bar and then you come in. Here we go. 1 and go. Repeat. repeat, and oh, that's so much fun. Oh my goodness, that's a lot of fun. You know, these were also arranged for orchestra by somebody else later on. I wonder if that would be fun to do. Okay, let's look at number 11. Running out of time. There's just so much fun things to do. Okay, let's just read this. Okay, let's try it. Basses, basses, tenors, okay, ready? Paul, why don't we play? Actually, no. Why don't you play the choral parts? I'll play the accompaniment on the bottom part.
Okay.
Okay. Let's do not too fast. Do. Oh, you can do it in da 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 dum bum ba ba bum bum. But let's do this fast. Da da ba 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 da da. Okay. 1, 2, 3. Here we go. Repeat. Repeat. Isn't that fun? It ends on that, it doesn't end on a downbeat. Da, da, ba, dum. Okay. Now, this goes by really fast, as we tried the other time, you know. It's just so much fun. Okay, let's try this. Now, the key is that every downbeat is really fun. Da 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 dum bum ba ba bum bum. So if you go jata dum bum bum bum, as if you're on a horse, like you're galloping. Jata dum bum ba ba bum bum. Let's do it a little slower. Just the first phrase. Okay, here we go. 1, 2, 3. Here we go. Good. So let's decide that we're just singing on da, not duh, or do, or doobie-doo, right? I hear a lot of da, 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 bum, ba, ba, bum, bum. This is like a, this is very much more like a Furriant, like this very energetic bohemian dance. So ta, 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 dum, bum, ba, ba, bum, bum. Tenors have the hardest line. Everybody else should be okay-ish. Ready? 1, 2, 3, here we go. 1, 2, and. Not bad. Now, that last note, make sure that we have pitch. Okay, one more time. Now, I want you to go ta 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 dum bum pa ta ta ta. See my hand? I want you to feel like you're swinging. Ta, 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 ba, ta, 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 ta. And so it's not ta, 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 but ta, 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 ta. Okay, here we go. 1, 2, 3, here we go. 2, 3. Yeah, not bad. What I hear sometimes from people is da 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 da. So da 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 da. When you crescendo or when you feel like you're going ta, you actually crescendo into the beat, not just create an accent on the beat. So not but ta 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 dum bum pa ta dum bum. Let's try that one more time. Mitz Paul. Ready? 1, 2, 3, here we go. Repeat and Okay, here we go. Let's do this together in the next part. Actually, let's do sopranos and altos first. Do-do-do, do-do-do-do. Okay, let's try that. Do-do-do-do, do-do-do-do-do-do-do-do. A lot of character. 1, 2, 3, here, sopranos, altos, go. Yeah, not bad. Now, can you do one bar at a time? Do-do-do, do-do-do-do. So it's not do-do-do, do-do-do-do, but do-do-do, do-do-do-do. Okay? Here we go. 1, 2, 3, sopranos, altos, go! Do-do-do-do. Sorry. That's when you really feel like the horses got away from you. You're like, whoa! Basses and tenors. Now, basses and tenors. Even though your lines don't naturally feel like they phrase like that, we want to phrase exactly like we did the sopranos and altos. Do-do-do, do-do-do-do. Do-do-do, do-do-do-do-do. Basses and altos with Paul, right? Because I keep on playing. Ready? 1, 2, 3, here we go. And good. Now basses. Let me hear you. 2, 2, 2, 2, 2, 2, 2. Okay. So again, then you have a pushing into the downbeat and then pulling away. Okay, here we go. 1, 2, 3, basses alone. Excellent. Now, this is the fun part. So, sopranos, altos, tenors, basses, starting from the bottom of this page. We're going to try to see how slow we want this retardando to go back to the original music. So listen. So you see at the top of page 29, if I'm starting from the first bar, we're going to use those 4 bars to gather up drama and slow down until we get back to the original music again. So again. Okay, let's try that. We're going to feel it out together. Paul and I have not rehearsed this before. Nobody has rehearsed this before. We're going to just try to feel it out together. So basses, tenors, altos, sopranos. This is page 28, the bottom. And we'll do a 1, 2, 3, okay? 1, 2, 3, here we go. We'll repeat. And it does really feel like you're in a cart with these horses in front of you, and you're like, where is it going? The cart is falling apart. It's so much fun. So again, these are so much fun to do because there are just so many ways you can approach them. And it is exactly what we've been talking about Brahms. It's these really fun old forms, but with these new twists to them, and they have such character that you can't help but just be really entertained and either drawn into his world, whether it's his depression, whether it's his abject, faith in humanity, or if it's just his, exploration and fun with these things. So we might look at some of these again next week too, but because the Nacht is not that long. But I want to pass it over to Julia, who's going to look at Gesangparts with everybody.
Okay, hello again, everybody. Before we start on the Gesangparts, I just have to say it was really fun listening to that. It was beautiful, and it was amazing to watch both Ming and Paul play because their cameras were shaking from the intensity of the piano playing. Was great. Okay, so let's open Gesangparts, and everyone turn with me to page 17, I believe. Yes. We're just going to review a little bit. We're kind of looking at the ending section, just kind of singing through the first part of this ending section, the recapitulation that we learned last week, and then we'll keep going and fill in that little hole that we missed a little bit last week, with our time left. So, Paul, would you join us again and play for us, starting at measure 100 is where we'll start. So we'll have a nice intro here. And then everyone, tenors and basses will come in at measure 103, the pickup into 104. Before we start, everyone take a look at sotto voce at your entrance. Both the tenors and basses and altos and sopranos have that marking there, sotto voce, which means kind of below voice, under voice, kind of like a little breathier, that has that different kind of sound quality, the tone quality to it. Sotto voce, kind of under your breath a little bit. And so keep that in mind when we get there. All right, here we go from measure 100 with Paul. All right, so we'll go around this tempo. 1, 2. Oh, this is the Gesang der Parzen, page 17. I saw in the chat. Okay. 1, 2, 3, and. Here we go. And go. Undo. Beautiful soprano altos. And now everyone. We would go on second, but I just want to do one more thing that was beautiful. Just careful of the sotto voce marking, right? I know I did mention kind of like more breathy sound, but careful that it doesn't actually just entirely collapse your vocal sound. So it's different than, I'll just sing the soprano line, for example. It's not quite, because that feels almost not present, right? So don't be afraid to have a little bit of clarity of voice, but have a kind of, rather than thinking about dynamic or quality of tone, think about color, right? Have this sense of, you know, kind of fear almost. You know, you're talking about fearing the gods, so have that kind of emotion behind it as you sing it, and think about that rather than trying to affect your tone. It can still have that definition that we were working on too. All right, let's start right on our entrance at 104 with pickup, and then we will keep going this time, I promise. A little bit faster. Here we go. 1 and 2 and 3 and. And soprano altos, here we go. And. Excellent definition, everyone now. And crescendo, get louder. Build the drama. And here we go, high point. And come back down. Excellent, and we'll keep going. Changing time signatures, and breathe. Excellent, let's keep going, and excellent, nicely done. Let's just review a little bit of that section before we keep going. Sopranos, excellent job with your phrasing. You had a really nice phrasing here. Don't forget, both the altos and the alto twos, I should say, and the sopranos have this very first B flat here that we sing. The sopranos, it's kind of very spooky note there, and then the alto twos, so make sure to bring that out of the context, because that's a kind of surprising note there. Let's have just the tenors and basses singing through this part, just to kind of remind us. If Paul, you'll play along with our parts here. Excellent, thank you. Pick up to 116 is where we are. Here we go. 1 and. Nicely done. Same thing with the altos and sopranos. Before we do, though, tenors really love the eighth notes that you have in measures 117 and 118. We're singing. It's a really lovely moment. Lean into that. Bring it out. It's gorgeous. You sang it beautifully. Just give us a little bit more. Sopranos and altos, same section, just to review. Here we go. 1 and. Excellent. everyone too, but the alto twos, that B flat was great. Excellent. Sopranos and altos, that was beautiful phrasing. Let's all do one more time, and then the kind of repetition that we have on the next page, just slight differences, but mostly just kind of we're saying the same phrase again on the next page, on the next section there. So one more time, all voices together. Really find that gentle and smooth nature to this legato phrasing so that we're really connecting all of the notes, all of the spaces in between. So rather than just each individual note, do, 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 right? But so it has a little bit more of that kind of flow. It's a contrast to that kind of harder feeling that we had earlier. Here we go, one more time, a little bit faster this time. We'll go 1, 2, 3. Here we go, 1, and really sing out, sing through. Excellent. Here comes a taper. Alto twos. Beautiful, nicely done. Let's keep going. And breathe. And taper again. Excellent. Let's kind of read through this next section. Stumble through. Here we go. Tenors, you have a nice solo here. And we'll pause there. That's a great place to stop. Excellent reading through. Let's just all sing the tenor line here at letter G, which is measure 130 with pickup. ESPRESS dot. What does that stand for? Espressivo. Expressive. It also stands for solo. So tenors, you have a nice solo here. You're the only one with the espressivo written. And you'll notice a little bit later at letter H, if we look ahead right where we stopped, sopranos get that solo espressivo solo moment. A little solo section here. So everyone, just so that we know, this kind of solo line here, let's all sing the tenor line all together in whatever range that you are most comfortable. But let's all sing it together. Paul, if you'll play with us. Here we go. 1 and. Excellent, and thank you for holding all the way through that measure. That was great. Nicely done. You'll notice the hemiolas, right? We have some hemiolas in measure 139, 138 into 139 as we're singing. Do, and then we come out of it. Do, do, do. We also have it at the very beginning of the phrase, letter G. Do, do, right. Do, do, and then again. Sorry. So kind of playing a little bit with the rhythm around here. Let's do that one more time, all voices singing together. And espressivo. Lean into the solo a little bit more. Really have fun with it. It's really kind of one long phrase. It's hard to really split up or take a breath anywhere, right? Because it feels like it just wants to keep going and keep growing and singing through. So anytime that you have a tie, which is helpful because there are lots over those hemiolas, sing through and grow through those. Grow into the high A when you get there. So in measure 132 into 33 into 34. And then kind of an echo almost. Really feel like you're just kind of growing through the phrase. Espressivo, lean into it. Here we go, all together one more time. Here we go. 1, breathe. Sing out. That was so delicate and lovely. That was excellent. Thank you. And I heard some other voices too starting to kind of sing your harmonies a little bit. So let's just take altos alone through this section. Altos 1s and 2s, and let's play through. Paul, if you'll join us at letter G so we get a sense of our notes here. Altos. And, you know, if anyone else wants to sing along, if you're not an alto but you want to practice sight reading alto, go for it. Here we go. 1, 2, 3, and. Nice. Excellent, altos. Nice job on all of those C naturals too, A2s. That was great. And now let's just take our basses so that we get a sense of our parts here. So at letter G again, basses alone. Here we go. 1, 2, 3, and. 1. Nicely done. And. Excellent. Nicely done, basses. Also with all those voice crossings. Nicely done holding your own on all of your splits. Let's try all voices together through this section. Do your best to hold your own. I know that when we have so many splits like this, especially with voice crossings among altos or among basses, it can be tricky, but let's give it a try. And then we'll keep singing. So sopranos, you'll be able to join us at letter H. You have a repetition of the tenor solo, as we mentioned. So when you do join us at letter H, sing beautifully, expressively that solo. Here we go. Pick up to letter G, tenor starting us off, and then altos and basses entering. Here we go. 1, and. Beautiful tenor. Sing through. soprano. Nicely done reading through that second section. It has a similar sound to it as the sopranos have their solo, but as you notice, there are some different parts there. But before we kind of back up, we are unfortunately running out of time of our rehearsal. But let's take a look at, this is measure 155-ish, I believe, where we have this giant hemiola happening at this ending section before we transition into the kind of repeat of the first motive just without the melody here. And that the hemiola, as you'll notice, as you noticed on the first sing through, has a lot of, we're kind of oscillating between two notes here. So the altos are going doo, doo, and the tenors are oscillating back and forth, and they change at one point. So we have for the tenors, this is measure 156, I believe. And then you have an F sharp at the end, which makes it nice and beautiful there. Just kind of oscillating between these two notes. Basses, you have an interesting B flat, which we were talking about last time. You have that B flat this time. You're making this chord interesting. You are the interesting note here, and then you just kind of resolve it at the end here. Really nice and juicy kind of notes here. But I also want to take a look at one last thing. Do you take, let's see, do you see where we see zu sein, the last couple of words that we have here on this section? Let me see if I can play this chord here. Does anyone know what kind of chord that is? I like that guess because it does sound crunchy and juicy and weird. Augmented. Because we have a B flat to a D, and that's a major chord, or major third, and then we have D to an F sharp, which would make a doo-doo-doo, which would make a major chord if you went up. But those two intervals together, a major third and a major third, make an augmented chord. We're singing an augmented chord on the zu, and then it releases and relaxes, if I can play this correctly, into a major chord, because the basses resolve from the B flat into the A on the bottom, and then resolve to the root of the chord there. But take a look at your notes here. B flat in the basses, D in the bass ones, F sharp in the tenors, and then we have a D in the altos, both altos, and then an F sharp in the soprano. D, F sharp, and B flat. Take a look at this last section here now. In measure 162, you're singing first a D. Doo, 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 doo. That gets kind of repeated. And then we kind of, when we're singing Es hört der Verbannte, you're changing and adjusting now. You're moving to an F sharp. That's two of the three notes that we just sang in that augmented chord. On to the next section here, and then you kind of, on the Der alte die Lieder, you're then also changing and adjusting to a B flat. So you're singing that last augmented chord, the augmented chord that you sang on the zu sein, while you're kind of oscillating between on the hemiola at around measure 155 through that section. You're now just kind of in a more laid out manner, singing that same augmented chord at the end here, and it's not a very resolved sound, is it? An augmented chord. So it's a really interesting unresolved ending here. Let's try singing through just to the end here, because I know that we're getting at the end of rehearsal, but just to get this kind of last feeling here. Let's sing from measure, I think this is pick up to measure 156 here, where we're singing Des An, where we're starting the oscillation. And Paul, if you'll play with us, pick up to 156, and then we'll keep singing all the way to the end and just kind of singing through. Here we go. We'll just start on that very last note, so beat 3 of this measure to pick up. I know that we're all singing the word des on different notes here. So we'll go 1 and. lean into the B flat. Excellent. And one more time. And release. And now let's experience that augmented chord a little bit more. And go. Then altos and bass ones. And tenor spaces 1. And space between 1 and 2, 3. And now altos and bass ones. Sopranos, tenors. Excellent. Altos and bass ones. And space in between. And excellent. And last section here, breathe. And sing through these longer notes here. 1, 2, breathe. 3, 4, breathe. 2, 3, 4, off. Excellent. Thank you, Paul, for playing along. And that very last section is really bowing our head in solemn silence here at the end. Beautiful singing, nicely done. And I'll pass it back to Ming for some closing rehearsal comments.
Thank you, Julia and Paul. Yeah, such incredible range of works. I mean, like, we're only studying one composer here, and the range and colors and different styles just fantastic. So, hope you enjoyed today's rehearsal. We're going to continue with Paul for our tradition of sing-along at the end, so I'm just going to pass it along to Paul.
Thank you very much. Was anybody else reminded of another piece at that very end where Julia was playing? That's what I kept hearing there when she was playing that. Do you think maybe Stravinsky stole that? I don't know. Well, we're gonna jump ahead about 100 years for a little bit of Billy Joel. One of my favorite pop composers. We're gonna start with one that I know you've all heard. It's called Just the Way You Are, and Christian's going to share that on his screen. Now, I just want to point out something about this. It's an interesting little, the way things are written here, the vocal line is included in the piano part. If you've never seen this kind of setting before, just always sing the top line and you can't go wrong. That's always going to be your part. And sing in whatever octave you like. And I notice in reading through this, if you were to read this exactly how it's written, it would be very stilted and not very enjoyable. So, feel free to distort the rhythm because Billy Joel does, and we're all just having some fun with this, right? So, we're going to just start at the beginning and sing right through. And you'll notice no, you won't notice. So, never mind. We'll start at the top. What it says up there at the top is that Billy Joel wrote this little ballad as a birthday present for his wife, Elizabeth. I never knew that. And, well, here we go. 1, 2, 3, and here we go. Don't go changing to try and please me. You never let me down before. Don't imagine you're too familiar, and I don't see you anymore. I would not leave you in times of trouble. We never could have come this far. I took the good times, I'll take the bad times, I'll take you just the way you are. Don't change the color of your hair. You always have my unspoken passion, and I don't think you seem to care. I don't want clever conversation. I never want to work that hard. I just want someone that I can talk to. I want you just the way you are. I need to know that you will always be the same old someone that I knew. Oh, what will it take till you will believe in me the way that I believe in you? I said I love you, and that's forever, and this I promise from the heart. I could not love you any better. I love you just the way you are. All right. That was fun. You sound great, Jack Trippers.
That was hilarious.
Now, we have another Billy Joel song here. And we have to thank Jan Marotta for this. She suggested this. It's Piano Man, which, I've always loved this song. And I would have chosen it myself, but here's why I don't. It's because I'm not a tenor, and I will not play this song. I will not play this song in any other key than C, because it just doesn't sound right. I've tried it in so many other keys, and it isn't right. And really, why should I make it so easy on myself? This one's for the tenors. Now, I'd like to, and altos and sopranos. Basses, you're just going to have to struggle along with me. Now, let me point out a couple of little things about this. You'll see at the bottom of the first page we have, it's 9 o'clock. Well, let's get into it. It's 9 o'clock on a Saturday. The person that transcribed this tune didn't really put his octaves right. So often, like on the next page, when he goes, son, can you play me a melody? That's way up here. Son, can you play me a melody? But that's not how it's written. So I'm going to have to ask you to kind of remember how the tune goes and sing it in whatever register is good. It's much more exciting to sing it up high. I will not be doing that. You're going to hear me jumping around because, well, I don't want to torture anybody. And one other thing I'd like to point out, because this is a very important word. On page 6, bottom system. We're almost there. There we go. Page 6, bottom system, second measure. The first word on the second measure is man. And say, man, what are you doing here? You don't say, what are you doing here? That's unacceptable. So let's fix that. Now, Christian has an incredibly tough job because the DS goes back like 8 pages and then it's got to jump ahead. So best of luck, Christian. Best of luck, everybody. And let's give this a shot. Let me make sure I'm on the right page. Here we go. I'll let Christian get back. There we go. From the top. And you have to play the harmonica, right? It's 9 o'clock on a Saturday. Regular crowd shuffles in. There's an old man sitting next to me, making love to his tonic and gin. He says, "Son, can you play me a melody? Not really sure how it goes, but it's sad and it's sweet, and I knew it complete when I wore a younger man's clothes." La da 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 da, la da 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 da. Sing us a song, you're the piano man. Come on, tenors up there. Sing us a song tonight, where we're all in the mood for a melody, and you've got us feeling all right. Now John at the bar, he's a friend of mine. He gets me my drinks for free, and he's quick with a joke or to light up your smoke, but there's some place that he'd rather be. He says, "Bill, I believe this is killing me," as the smile ran away from his face. "Well, I'm sure that I could be a movie star if I could get out of this place." Oh, la da da da, la da 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 da. Now Paul is a real estate novelist who never had time for a wife, and he's talking with Davy, who's still in the Navy and probably will be for life. And the waitress is practicing politics, and the businessmen slowly get stoned. Yes, they're sharing a drink they call loneliness, but it's better than drinking alone. Chorus, sing us a song, you're the piano man. Let's page forward us a song tonight, where we're all in the mood for a melody, and you've got us feeling all right. And verse 4. It's a pretty good crowd for a Saturday, and the manager gives me a smile, 'cause he knows that it's me they've been coming to see, to forget about life for a while. And the piano sounds like a carnival, and the microphone smells like a beer, and they all say that the bar put the bread in my jaw and say, "Man, what are you doing here?" Oh, la da 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 da, la da 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 da. And Coda, sing us a song, you're the piano man. Sing us a song tonight, where we're all in the mood for a melody, and you got us feeling all right. Thank you, everybody. That was so fun. Oh my God. Now you know why. Oh God, I wish I could sing those high G's, tenors. I hope you enjoyed that. Well, that's all I have for this evening. I do take requests, as you can tell. So,
thank you, Paul.
Wonderful.
That's fantastic. Yeah, great, everybody. Well, have a wonderful week. And thank you, Paul and Julia, of course, and Christian and everybody on the Jack team and everything. So we'll see you next time.
Bye.
Bye, everybody. Good night.
Bye. Thank you so much. That was so fun.
That's so fun. That was really fun. I like that. Thank you, Jan. Thank you, Paul. It's for him.